I think we should be live. I'm just waiting for it to.
Register, yeah.
Yes. Don't
Yep,
know how
we're
long
live.
that takes. Are we live? Let me refresh this
Yep, we're
page.
live.
Perfect. Excellent.
Yep.
Excellent.
Yeah, I'm much louder this time.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Glad we have that fixed, so there won't be any more problems. Are you too loud now, or are you just the right amount of loud?
Let's see. Let's just.
Okay.
I
Test.
think I'm not too bad. I'll just
Perfect.
move my mic back a bit so that it's not like right on my face.
Perfect. So, what a race.
What a race, yeah. Such a crazy race. I I wasn't expecting that when I came back from work to be watching that and see how much mayhem would happen.
Did you count how many safety cars there were, or how many incidents there were in total of people going off track? I don't think I did.
I couldn't count. I couldn't count. There was so many. Like so many people went off or like had accidents or just even like spun that kind of way and it just chaos.
The best has to
Like
be Lance Stroll, without a doubt.
why is he still in the sport? Why is he still here? What does he offer?
A father with
Like,
an unlimited bank account.
like it's just silly at this point. I just I don't get it. I really don't get it.
Yeah,
I
it's
don't think he should be here.
no, I definitely agree. But I thought it was funny that they had to work so hard to fix that car after the qualifying session. First, we can get to qualifying session. I mean, I don't know. What did you think was would you prefer this format of qualifying on Sunday and then the race? Obviously, for the mechanics and everybody that's part of the team, it definitely isn't beneficial, I guess, having to wake up so early.
It No, definitely not beneficial, but it did kind of it condensed it into like one day of action, I suppose. I'm not that big of a fan of it because it meant that I didn't get to see qualifying, and I do like that whole thing of like having basically a full day to think back on what's after happening in qualifying and then go into the race the next day and have like had those conversations with people even on Twitter and that kind of way about what we think is going to happen and then seeing it play out in the next day.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's also too much because when I think back on qualifying, especially with such a hectic race like the one we had today, it feels so long
Mhm.
ago. It feels that so much has happened since then, but it's
Yeah,
all been today, which is
yeah.
crazy to think
I,
about.
I I I saw small bits of qualifying with me being in work. I got to see kind of I think about 5-10 minutes of it all like over the different bits that I got to see. Like I got to see the end of Q1. Um, I got to see the end of Q2, but I didn't see any of Q3.
I also had to leave halfway through Q3, so I was streaming it on my
Yeah.
phone and I just saw bits of the aftermath after Albon
Mhm.
completely destroyed that car.
Oh,
I was
it
happy.
looked terrible.
Yeah, I was happy that nothing happened and it's okay.
Like that car was destroyed.
I think even right after he had his press interview and he said that there's no chance he's going to be starting the Grand Prix
Yeah.
because he was aware that
It's
it was just too much damage on it.
oh yeah, it's disappointing for him, but like at the same time, I can understand how he kind of lost it. Like Colapinto lost it twice in the race and lost it in qualifying as well. Like it's the weather conditions did play a factor into it.
Absolutely, absolutely. But you have okay. What off the top of your head, what was more impressive, Lewis 2021 or Max today?
Wait, Lewis 2021.
Well, Brazil, Lewis
Oh,
back in Brazil,
oh yeah,
going through
yeah,
the
yeah.
field completely, or Max from P17.
Genuinely, today was more impressive. I can't take it away from Max that that was an insane drive.
I thought it was a pure masterclass in the wet. It was and you could
Like,
feel the emotion in his voice afterwards too. That this one truly meant something for him.
yeah, he got really like he got a bit lucky with some of the like safety cars and red flag and all that, but at the same time, he was in that position because of the drive that he put in. So I do feel that it was down to his quality today that got him to that point.
Especially knowing that the car that he has just isn't up to par with the likes of McLaren, for example. I know we were talking yesterday that maybe in the
Yeah.
wet McLaren isn't the strongest, but I still
Hmm.
wouldn't expect him to be behind Red Bull on pure pace alone.
Mm. Yeah. Well, we were also saying that Mercedes was quick in the wet and quick in the cool conditions, and then we saw Lewis go out in Q1. So that car looks like a monster to drive. So
Does,
I,
but on
I
the other
wouldn't
hand,
be.
Russell, he carried it to P2 in qualifying, and he was holding off pretty well in that first place spot.
They are driving two different cars though. Russell's driving the car that they used to win in Britain, like in Silverstone and Spa, and Hamilton's driving the car that has been a shit show since they went to America.
Yeah, that is true as well.
So they've got they like it was even said last week that they were basically driving two different cars.
Hmm.
It's interesting to see how Mercedes like compare the two cars. The one that like was halfway through the season to the one that's three quarters of the way through the season, and it's like they've gone backwards.
Yeah, it's crazy to think about
Which
that instead of going
it's
forward. It's paradoxical almost.
yeah, it's a bit like Aston recently actually.
And then I can't even. There's so much to unpack from this race that I don't even know where we should begin.
I think we should begin with Alpine.
Alpine. Okay. Uh, I think it's
What?
fair to say that the most impressive finish they've ever had, personally, as a
That
team.
like that was insane. That was a strategic masterclass from whoever came up with the idea to just send them out and just leave them out there. Because if they like if they pitted, they wouldn't have gotten that. But the fact that they stayed out and waited for the red flags, they knew eventually there was going to be a red flag. Like the weather was terrible. It was in everyone's best interest that they stay out. But I don't know why people decided not to.
I don't know. That
Maybe
was
they
one
were
of
just
my
struggling
issues
on
with.
tires or something.
Yeah, I don't know because I think Leclerc was the first one to pit, and he pit right when it started raining. But
Yeah,
the Alpine drivers, they must have been like on eggshells almost for 3 laps or 4 laps or however many it was before the red flag actually
yeah.
came out.
They looked like they were like the car was like really trying to go off the track for like 2 or 3 laps before the red flag.
No, it was hectic, but like you said, it was a strategic masterclass, and I truly don't think they've ever had such a collective great result as a team. They've both gotten. Well, I guess
Yeah,
Esteban
like
wasn't with Alpine when he got his win. Neither was
he
Gasly
was.
actually. Yeah, yeah,
Hmm?
Ocon was, but Gasly wasn't with Alpine when he won.
Gasly wasn't. No, Gasly
Yeah,
was with AlphaTauri.
yeah, back in Monza. So
Like the next best result that I can think of from Alpine was hmm certain night in Singapore in 2008. That it was a very team game that night. I think.
we won't get too much into that one.
No, we'll move on.
More recently, they had the two second place finishes last year, I think. Or I don't know if
Mm.
Gasly finished third. I can't remember exactly, but I know Ocon had. They had Zandvoort and they
I
had
remember them.
Monaco last year.
Yeah, I remember this.
I don't remember if it was third or
Yeah,
second.
I can't remember if it was third or second, but it's two podium finishes anyway last year, which was great for them.
And this year, this one double podium finishes propels them all the way from what is it, P9 in the standings to P6. Like, think
Yeah,
of how much
I'm
money
right
that
in
means
the
for the
mix.
team.
They were saying
Insane.
on the feed that was like 50 million difference,
It's
which is
crazy.
huge.
I hope the team
That
gets
is.
some nice bonuses for today's work all around. The
Oh yeah.
strategists
Oh
especially.
yeah. Oh, I can imagine. I don't think the pit crew deserve too much because they didn't really do anything.
Yeah.
They just kind of sat around waiting for nothing to happen. Like
If the
they
team
were
goes
just.
up 50 million in one day, then I'm pretty sure they can spare some change for everybody.
Yeah. No, they were glorified spectators for the race.
It's a pretty cool
Apart from the
spot to
red
have.
flag thing. Oh yeah, seeing them whiz by in front, next to you, kind of cool.
Yeah, overall, I thought Alpine for sure is definitely the winners of today.
Oh,
The
100%.
loser of today overall, what would you say? I have my opinion on this, but I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are first.
I I think Williams or McLaren
I would go
were
so
the
far as
overall
to
losers.
say Norris himself.
Yeah, well, Norris, it was kind of up to himself, really, that he kind of made his own mistakes. But even at that, the game's the game.
Yeah, I just think he's once again showing that he is not him. Not yet. I'm not saying he's never gonna become a champion.
Yeah,
Maybe he will, but he doesn't have it yet. I mean, if we would have
yeah, he
reversed the
does.
roles, because I was seeing on Twitter people arguing as well that Max got lucky, which fair enough. I mean, perfectly timed red flag for him as well. But again, everybody has strategists. Everybody can take the risk and stay out until that point. But I
Hmm.
think if roles would have been reversed and Lando would have been starting P17, he would not have won that race, even if he had the same car Max had, which arguably is worse than his car, right? Worse than the McLaren.
Yeah,
And if he
yeah,
had the same timing of the flags and of the safety cars and everything.
yeah. No, I don't. I don't think Lando was gonna ever win that race. From the moment that he lost it into turn one, he was never going to win that race because from the moment he loses turn one, it's already gotten into his head that he's not like he's trying to fight claw back at it again to try get back. Whereas if he was ahead and kept it into turn one, he'd be kind of okay. This is my race. I'm able to calm down. I don't have to claw anything back. Just kind of ease through this race, get through there, be careful. Whereas he was making rash decisions to try get himself back to first place. That really cost him the win today.
Right. And it's not like it was, I mean, it was Russell and the Mercedes that overtook him, so it wasn't, you would have assumed that he could have kept P1 today because he wasn't up against Max, who I guess gives him nightmares at this point whenever they're racing because he knows he's going to be thrown off the track. But
Yeah,
against Russell, I would have expected him to be more,
yeah.
I don't know.
I thought that he like because Russell. Well, Russell's had his fair share of kind of incidents in going through corners and that, but at the same time, he would be more lenient than Max. I feel
I think everybody's more lenient than Max when it comes to fighting
true,
wheel to wheel.
very very true, especially if you're on the outside.
Yes, the only person so far that I've seen Max actually respect in corners is somehow Leclerc. And I don't know why, but they just seem to have this mutual. Max seems to be
Yeah,
at least 5% more lenient with him than with everybody
yeah.
else.
I don't know. I don't know what that is. It's strange. Maybe he just doesn't see Leclerc as a threat in his own mental way or something. I don't know.
Maybe I saw also some ideas or theories that since they've been racing each other for so long, like even karting when they were young, they
Yeah,
know each other so well that he knows how Leclerc races as well and when he has to be aggressive, when he doesn't have to be aggressive. They know when
yeah.
to leave the space for each other.
He knows when they might have an incident.
Yeah, just an incident.
Yeah, that's we had many incidents today.
Oh yes, too many to count.
It was crazy. It was like one second it was like dry, and then all of a sudden you could not see a thing. Like I remember when they cut, like when they had, I think that was it the VSC, and they'd Russell and Norris going into the pits, and they showed one part of the track, and it was kind of dull, but like you could still see everything. And then they were pulling into the pits, and it was just white. You couldn't see a
Yeah,
thing.
the whole straight by the pits, it was almost like fogged out completely. They were trying to show the
Yeah,
races between the drivers and just couldn't see what cars were there.
yeah.
And it
Like
wasn't
I
even from the
remember,
spray necessarily. It was just the downpour of rain that was happening.
mhm. Like I remember Hamilton's overtake on Alonso. You could just about make out Hamilton, but you did not know where Alonso was.
Yeah, and that was right after the red flag, I think, no? I think
Yeah,
when they restarted the
it
race and
was. Yeah.
I was just thinking now, I think every team had at least one incident at some point.
Hmm. Hmm.
I think. Because
Yeah,
Red Bull for sure, that we
because
had Sergio spin right at the beginning. He
certainly,
managed to.
yeah. McLaren, mm, yeah.
Piastri had a moment.
Uh,
Let's just say
Piastri
that.
had a moment. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Ferrari, Carlos,
Had a big moment.
Mercedes. Yeah, Mercedes. Lewis went off.
Yeah, theirs wasn't too bad though.
Uh,
Theirs wasn't horrible.
yeah, they were okay. They managed to somehow keep it between the lines most of the time. Then you have, who's next?
Well, Aston
Alpine.
Martin, we know what Aston Martin did. Alpine might have been the
Aston,
only
we
one
know
that didn't have any issues. You're right.
they might. Yeah, I don't like. They had a few kind of touch and go moments, but mostly it was pretty fine. I think. Don't
Hmm.
think that there was any issues.
Wow, I would not have bet any money on that if we went into this weekend and you have told me that Alpine would have been overall the best performing team from a strategic standpoint and from a performance standpoint. Lack of mistakes, that's
It's the
rare.
Oliver Oaks effect.
Yeah, could very well
Has to
be,
be.
could very well be.
Without him, it wouldn't happen.
And then, well, for Aston, we know that Stroll managed to tick off that box before we even started the race, as he does in typical
Ticked.
Stroll fashion.
Um, then
Williams,
for V Carb, well, Williams is fairly obvious.
yeah,
V Carb, they, I think Lawson went off once and lost a few places.
I think Lawson also had that spin with Piastri, which I don't know if
Oh
that
yeah,
counts
yeah, yeah.
necessarily because it wasn't his fault technically, but
Well, but it's still technically something.
and
Then
then
you've got
Stake, I think
Sauber.
Joe Guan Yu went off, yeah. Joe Guan Yu went off right
Yeah.
at the beginning.
Am I forgetting anyone?
I don't think so. Uh, there's been so many
Williams,
rebrands.
Sauber, Alpine,
Oh,
Aston.
Haas. But Ollie Behrman went off
Oh,
like
who's-
four times in one lap.
yeah,
So it was okay.
he was just he was just a fidget spinner today.
Yeah.
Poor lad.
Yeah, he was struggling. I think it was his
Third,
first wet
third,
race. And
third F1 race, and he was, oh, what a one to have as your third race.
it's like I
Yeah,
was just thinking that if there's ever a time, because you know how we always assume that we could do what the drivers do. We're always like, oh yeah, I'm sure I could drive an F1 car. Uh,
mhm.
if there's ever one time I would be scared to be an F1 driver, it would definitely be in wet race situations. Like, it is terrifying to see that downpour. You can't see anything in front of you, and you're going 300 kilometers an hour. You just have to
Mhm.
hit that throttle, which I think it's so crazy. A part of me would love to see more wet races, but on the other hand,
Yeah,
I feel for the driver's safety because you just know that something's bound to happen.
yeah. Like you had Lewis asking for them to go for quali yesterday, and then you have quali today, and it's like there was how many accidents? Like five cars crashed out, I think, in quali, and then you'd what, four or five crashed out in the race. So and Hulk got a black flag,
Yeah, I
which
don't know. That's 50-50 for me. I understand that the rule is the rule,
oh
but
yeah, it's the rules to rule.
just let him go. I don't know. I saw another tweet that
Three
people were
man man.
saying that Magnussen's probably at home laughing watching this race. Imagine the headache that he saved
Yeah,
himself from not having to be part of this.
yeah, yeah. And now everyone else is going to be sick from getting wet and everything like that, and Magnussen's going to win the next race.
You heard it here first.
Master stroke. But it's just been released from by the FIA that Russell, Lawson, Sonoda, and Norris have been summoned to the stewards for a race start infringement, or the aborted race start
Yeah, the aborted
incident.
race start slash the fake formation lap incident.
Yeah, what actually happened with that?
I I'm not entirely sure
Like,
what
I know they
happened.
aborted it because of Lance, but I don't know what actually happened that was an infringement.
I think the infringement was, in theory, uh, so they were on the formation lap, and then the aborted start. It wasn't a signal to go for another formation lap, so they should have just stood still on the grid.
Oh, right.
And I guess that's where the infringement took place. And I know I think even Max came on the radio and wasn't sure because him just knowing all the rules for some reason that he's locked in when it comes to any rule from the FIA.
Yeah, yeah,
And I think GP told him that the ones at the front are the one that are under investigation because it was a mistake on
yeah,
their end. So I think that was the
yeah,
infringement. That since they didn't say we're redoing the formation lap, they just
yeah,
assumed that it's going to be another formation lap, and they went.
yeah, yeah. That could be, and also if they like did the thing with the lights, it could have like confused them a bit because like the whole thing with the lights being the signal is really confusing for them.
Yeah,
Like I can understand them not allowing them to talk to their engineers on the formation lap because they could be giving them really good information like, oh, do this to like for your tires or hold back a bit more, go forward, hold back, that kind of way. But in that scenario where they're saying like, oh, we'll just stay here, don't go for another formation lap. I think that they should be allowed to let the engineers tell the driver that instead of having these like different light signal type things that really confuse every driver.
right. Especially when it's a race like today, or not even a race because it hadn't started, but a build up to a race like today when there's so much going on. It's raining. You're not sure how the conditions going
And
to be,
they,
how the car's going to
yeah,
react.
and like even having quali today as well, like it's just completely thrown everything up in the air.
Yeah, I mean, they started at what 7:30 a.m. I think, which means the drivers definitely
Yeah,
had to get up at like 5:30, latest 6, I would assume. Because I heard that
yeah,
the logistics to get to and from the circuit were absolutely horrendous this weekend as well.
yeah,
Obviously, the drivers probably
yeah.
have some sort of special
Oh, they
accommodations for
probably
that.
have like yeah, they've probably a good accommodation close by, and also like an escort to the track. So, but at the same time, it's like, phew,
It's a long day and a hard day too.
yeah,
It's not a straightforward day
hmm
either. It's a well-deserved break for now. Although again, I'm
hmm
upset we have 3 weeks in between.
yeah. God, it's 3 weeks, isn't it?
I think so.
Wow,
The next one's on what, the 24th,
twenty
I
first.
think.
Yeah,
Or the 18th. I don't even know what date, to be honest. I think it's the
it's
24th.
20. I remember the 21st being a date on
21st.
it or something.
Could be. Could be.
But
Could be.
yeah, 21st to 24th possibly.
Yeah, because it's technically it's a Saturday race, right? Or I don't
Oh
know.
yeah, it is.
It's the Saturday to Sunday midnight race. So it might be
Mm-hmm.
the 21st to the 23rd, but that's the 24th for us. Maybe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Something
probably.
like that.
So if that's like a 5 6 a.m. start for me, so it wouldn't be
Yeah.
too bad for you, I don't
I
think.
think it's a 7 a.m. start for me. It's either 7 or 8, so either way I can live with that on a Sunday. It's not ideal, but it's definitely better than 5
Yeah.
a.m.
Well, Australia next year for me is going to be 4 a.m. So That's tough going because it's
I don't.
like it's it's in that bracket where it's like between where you can stay up for it and when you can get up early for it.
Right.
You just kind of have to find the right place. Last year it was, I was fine because I had there was F3 and F2 to watch in, like between, like, because there was what, yeah, there was quali at, or FP3 at like 11 to 12 or something, and then you like F3 and F2 or something, and then quali, and then I remember the race. I basically just stayed up the whole night and watched the F3 race, the F2 race, and then just waited around until the actual race.
I think
But it
it's
was
hard
tough
for
going.
me. I don't know if there's any race that is horribly timed over here in Europe. Australia's early, but if it was 5
Mm-hmm.
for you or 4, that's 6 or 7 for me. Which again, I don't think it's not 4 a.m. Right? I think I
Yeah.
remember Japan being pretty bad last year. Maybe
Mm.
it could have been Japan. Um,
I remember Japan being bad just from the fact that it was dark when I was getting up. Because, like, I remember, was it, yeah, the race that Max won the championship with, the one where it was like torrential rain and that whole thing.
that one, yeah.
I remember, yeah, where it was like red flagged for like 2 hours. I was at a party, like a birthday party the night before. I didn't get back until about one, half one, and I got up to watch the start of the race and stayed up until they started the race, which was absolutely stupid because the race didn't start for another hour and a half. And even at that, it was 45 minutes. I was like, that was just stupid of me.
Yes, and especially that race because I also got up early for that one. I think it would have been a bit later
Mm,
than for you again. That's lucky for me. Um, but nothing happened. It was red flagged for the longest time, and then the entire I think a good portion of the race was behind the safety car. And then they finally got it running, but it wasn't. I don't know. I feel like when we have
mm-hmm.
wet races, today was an exception, honestly, because usually the wet races have become almost pointless in a way. The last one I always think of Spa back in what was it 2021. I think that one
Mm-hmm.
when Norris also had his incident in qualifying, and I think Russell ended up
Yeah,
qualifying P2 and finished in P2 because
yeah. That race was a complete farce. Being totally honest, it wasn't even a race in my eyes.
it
Like,
barely
I feel
was.
really bad for the fans.
Exactly, exactly. And imagine paying all that money to go, accommodations and everything, and you're
Mm-hmm.
completely reliant on the elements and on nature.
Yeah, and like Spa is in that kind of position where it's like if it's gonna rain, it's gonna pour because it's like so high up. Like, I remember going to Spa and like on Snapchat, the way they've got the kind of the thing of like the above sea level filter on it.
Okay,
Basically, I used that at one point. I can't remember where on the around the track I was, but it was like 2,000 meters above sea level.
that's crazy.
So it was going to be fairly like high. So
Yeah,
you're going to
it's
get a
so
lot of rain
unpredictable.
from that high up.
And even when I play Gran Turismo, it's the same issue. It's always an unpredictable weather setup, no matter what.
Yeah,
But like I
yeah.
told you in the chat right before, for me overall, I'm happy that Max won because I did end up getting some of my predictions right as well.
You did. You got a really good prediction there. You got what, like,
I
that's.
did make 2 accounts, so full disclosure, I did make 2 accounts. One I had for the McLaren boys, that's even what I named it, uh,
Mm-hmm.
just for to see how it works because I truly thought they would be dominant, right? And it was kind of if it doesn't end up
Yeah.
raining, I did think that Norris and Piastri would be competitive. I was hoping they would have let
Yeah.
Piastri like we went over yesterday, but that wasn't the case. And then I had another
Mm-hmm.
one where whenever I see Perez with his crazy 188 return, I have to put some tickets on him. So I thought I would go like
You
one
have
third.
to.
Yeah, I figured it would
No,
be.
really, really, with those returns on Perez, you just gotta risk it. It's like you never know what one of these days he's going to pull a masterclass.
Yes, and
It
that was
might
the
it might
thing.
not be in Formula One racing, but he'll pull a masterclass in something.
Hey, the Monaco post race parties. He's pretty good at that.
Yeah, yeah,
But
he's quite good at those. All right.
but yeah, I ended up putting 100 of my 120 tickets on this account on Verstappen, which I'm very happy about because I think I made like
Yeah,
8 million
respect.
box tokens, and I'm putting
That's a lot.
yeah, it's quite a bit, but I'm almost positive that I won't be able to help it, and I'll have to go all in on Leclerc for the predictions for Las Vegas. I think I can feel a Ferrari 1-2,
Mm.
like we said.
Do you feel it?
I feel the Ferrari 1-2 coming.
Yeah. I don't know. I'll be waiting until practice just to be sure. Just to be sure.
That's a smart idea, which is probably why I'll only put like half of the tickets on them before I see any sort of
And then
action.
you'll decide.
Yes, but I'm curious if I don't know if anybody in the chat's watching right now, but if anybody in the chat is watching that does have or did put any of their tickets on Verstappen today or on any other driver, I'm curious to see what the chat thinks that who they thought would have won before the race and who actually predicted properly with Verstappen. So we'll see if anybody
Hmm.
was part of that if they answer. But for the time being, yeah, I'm very happy. And like we said, for the next race, we are definitely going to get you
Get me set up.
set up with that as well.
I'm very lucky because I would have lost it all on Hamilton going on to win today.
All of it on Hamilton
And
going to win in the race,
I,
in the
I
wet.
wouldn't put it all on him, but like I was very confident that he was going to pull something out of the bag in the wet. But yeah, didn't wasn't meant to be.
I was hoping so too. Oh, ah, Alina
Oh,
did. So yes, my girlfriend did in fact put some tickets on Verstappen. She is a Verstappen fan, or was back
very
in
smart, very smart.
2021. I was
Ah,
also a Verstappen fan back in 2021. That was more so for the fact.
everyone was a Verstappen fan in
Yes,
2021, apart from
yes,
Hamilton fans.
exactly, exactly. And that was just, I think, in part because I wanted to be anything but a Hamilton fan at that point.
Yeah,
So I was rooting for him. Now I think it's more of an underdog thing. We always want the underdogs to win.
yeah, yeah. Like I've got a good feeling for next year. I have a feeling that Ferrari could bring it up to McLaren and Red Bull. I do have a good feeling about that. I think going forward that they've got a good chance. So it might be good to see a three-way fight for the title next year.
I would love to see a three-way fight for the title if it ends with Ferrari winning the title. That'd be my ideal
Oh, 100%. 100%.
ideal
That's
year.
the only way. Yeah.
So actually,
But
another status. Sorry, go ahead.
they do need to nail the strategies though. That's the one thing that they need to nail.
I don't know. I missed the clown
Get
pitbox. It brings back some nostalgic
yeah, but
vibes from the past couple seasons.
now we need to get rid of that if we're going to win the championship next year.
I actually saw a an interesting stat. That there's I think he tweeted this out that there's now 22
Hmm.
points between Norris and Charles for P2. And how
Hmm.
crazy would that be if by the end of the year Charles does manage to overtake Lando for P2, although the entire season, or not the entire season, but at least the last one third of the season, we've been hearing about this championship fight between Norris and Verstappen,
Yeah,
and to then go on and lose P2 in the championship battle, that'd be criminal.
I, I've been hearing that as well. That like Lando's been in this title fight. It's really close. It's going to go down to the wire between Lando and Max. And then you've got Leclerc slowly creeping up on Lando, and like going into Mexico, it was 22 points as well. It was that Lando beat Leclerc, and then
Yeah.
Leclerc beat Lando this week and brought it back. So
But I do, like we said, I do think Las Vegas is going to be a track where Ferrari should, in theory, be competitive.
beat it good. it'd be interesting to see if uh, to see like Max and Lando getting into a tussle and potentially leaving the door wide open for Leclerc to come in and get a win.
But on the other hand, I think mathematically after today, Leclerc is out of contention for the World Driver Championship. And let's be honest, I think we can agree that Norris is basically out
It
too. I
was
mean,
never
I
gonna.
don't.
Yeah.
I know, I agree with you there, but don't want to upset the those that may have had hope.
Well, Lewis could do Ferrari a favor. Tactical foul in the last two races.
Hey, you know, no harm done.
He'll definitely be welcome with open arms into the Tifosi, but after that,
All he has to do is touch the wings a little bit, but we also need signs to not crash the car. That would definitely help.
yeah, that would help. But Lewis does have a liking for Red Bull rear right wheels, so you never know. You never know.
What about Lawson and Sergio getting into it once again? Just a bit. They've already.
I find that fight so funny, considering that Colapinto is like really in talks with taking over for Checo, which is hilarious. It's like the two of them are fighting, and Red Bull are like, "We're not looking at you. We're looking at."
We're looking at somebody
It's
else.
yeah. It's like that kind of the old kind of story of like two friends fighting over the same girl, and then the girl goes for another guy, and they're like, "Huh, all right." So it's really funny, but
But
I'd love for Colapinto to be in Red Bull next year.
oh, I think that would be so cool to see. But I think Lawson, I like the level of arrogance he has, but I think it's also a bit too arrogant at the same time. Just a tad too arrogant.
Sorry about that.
No worries. I was saying I like the level of arrogance that Colapinto has. I did not Colapinto, sorry, that
Mhm.
Lawson has, but I think it's also just a
Mhm.
tad too arrogant too quickly.
It's too much, and he's got nothing to show for it. Like
Not yet,
he's
at least.
not been blowing the timing charts out of the water that type of way, but so it's a bit much
For a
for what
drive-by
he's
middle
like.
finger while you're passing Sergio Perez on the straight into Mexico. Like,
Yeah,
come on. That's,
he didn't really seem to care about getting out of that track alive. He was just hoping that nobody could see it on the big screens.
yeah, nobody could see it on the big screens, but then again, like Twitter exists, right? I mean, they know that people are here going to edit it and show it. I mean, everybody was loving it when they
Yeah.
saw it, but then he gets called. It's like you get called into the principal's office afterwards, and they tell you like, "Hey, we don't want you doing that."
Yeah, it's watching the clip of him just kind of standing in the motorhome while Horner is like getting interviewed by someone, and he's just standing there waiting for him to come back, and then he gets brought into the office for a scolding. Oh, it was amazing.
Oh man, that's crazy. What else did Elena say? She said Max gives everything to be the champion, and Norris hasn't proven that yet. To be honest, I think today was one of the clearest examples of I don't know.
Well,
I don't want to say it, but again, Norris just doesn't have it.
mhm. Lando doesn't have the mental strength, in my opinion, at the moment to win a championship because he's still in this loser mentality that oh, it's all against us to win the championship. We don't have a chance of winning it. That kind of way. If you're going to win a championship, you're not going to have that mentality. Like you're going to embrace the challenge and say, yeah, we can beat them, even though we're like the underdog. But like even at that, McLaren have had the best car since Miami. Well, for most races. There's been a few that they haven't been, but they've been thereabouts. That like if they were the quality, like at that quality, they could be getting that race win, even though they're not. Like you look at Max there in 2021, for example, when he was racing Lewis. That Rebel was probably not the fastest at Kota, but they still managed to get that race win.
Yeah.
It wasn't the quickest at Paul Ricard. Still managed to get the race win. That was down to strategy, but they still managed to get it. And even though they were kind of seen as the underdogs, they embraced it and pushed forward to win that championship. Lando doesn't seem to have that right now.
Which is unfortunate. But like she wanted to clarify yet, which fair. So
Yeah,
she thinks it is
there's a
possible.
possibility.
It is
Yeah,
possible,
oh,
but
it's possible for everyone to have this mentality. It's just that they have to they've got to work on it to not play the victim card, to believe that they can do this, they
exactly, and
can
he
win.
has to not be defensive because he's fighting defensive rather than fighting offensively, which is crazy. Because
Hmm.
again, the fact at this point, I'm sure he's stressed as well, but he loses out every time when he's starting on the first lap in P1. It has to
Yeah,
be playing with his mind at this point.
he's lost more positions than this season uh, than Checo has had a falling out with his wife after cheating on her uh, in all of their marriage. So like,
Which is a lot.
yeah, so it's he doesn't have the focus. You need to have that like hyper sensitive focus to win a championship, and he doesn't have that. It also is one of the things that I see in Leclerc, that he has the talent, he has that winner's mentality, but at the same time he relies too much on the team. Like I remember in 2022, there was a few calls that the team were making that he just said no to, but then went along with what they were saying, and it completely ruined his chances.
Yeah.
Whereas you look at Lewis this year in Silverstone, for example, the team said to him, "Oh, we'll box," and he's like, "No, no, no, wait, wait, wait." And because of them waiting for to box him, he ended up winning that race, because they weren't like, if you look, if they had pitted a lap or two before, Lando and Max would have been able to have caught Lewis by the end of the race.
Yeah. And that's one thing I respected always. Again, Charles fan, but I respected that Sainz had the ability to say no and like strategize within the
Mm-hmm.
cockpit and say like, "Hey, we're gonna do this." Whereas Leclerc just did
Mm-hmm.
whatever he was told, and it would never work out. I mean, they've gotten much better,
Yeah.
obviously, but you have to be
I,
great all around. I think.
I still love that radio from Singapore last year, I think it was, when Ricky came on the radio to Carlos and goes, "Lando's in your DRS," and he goes, "I know it's on purpose." I was like, he just knows what he's doing, that kind of way, and like that he was like overriding them the whole time, and it was a real masterclass from him, that race.
Yeah, you can see that he's smart. That's one of my. I think Leclerc's like a puppy sometimes. He just
Hmm.
that feels like he's not always locked in fully. He's locked in on
Yeah,
the driving aspect, but like you said, not on the all around aspect of what it takes.
yeah.
So I do think there needs to be some sort of
Like Carlos has that instinct and stuff like that, but he doesn't have the racecraft and consistency that Leclerc has. Like Ferrari have all the ingredients of a world champion just split into two drivers,
yeah.
and
And you would
it's
think that at
heartbreaking to
least it
see.
would bring them a constructors championship, but maybe if they had started the season out strong and been consistent throughout.
Hmm.
But I thought again the Imola upgrades were supposed to be magical, and it just made the car worse.
Yeah, that's one of the things with Formula One that the that teams struggle with, is that It's you think that what you're bringing is going to be great, but then it ends up just kind of ruining your chances going forward, and you have to take a step back. Like that's another thing with Mercedes. You saw they were up on the up going through the summer period. They brought new upgrades and they realized, oh no, these aren't working. So instead of going back to what they knew was a working formula, they decided to bring more upgrades to try fix those upgrades, which ended up breaking those upgrades even more. And it just and the reluctancy to raise the ride height is what is killer for their car. It's destroying them. It's what caused them to spin at Kota. It's what's caused them to have such a bouncy ride the last two races that both drivers are complaining about it, and it just makes it so hard to drive it. And then you look at them back in Spa and Silverstone where they were just running rings around everyone, and like George, even with that drive to only do a one stop when everyone else did a two stop, yeah, he went under the limit of weight,
Another
but
stupid
it
rule.
was a it was a really good drive, and the car was really strong. So yeah,
Yeah,
I
that
don't
was
know.
very unfortunate as well. I mean, okay, Mercedes still ended up getting a win because Lewis was promoted, I think, to race winner back in
Hmm.
Spa.
Yeah.
But that rule with the being underweight when they don't actually have the in lap, I don't know. I know
Hmm.
everybody was saying that they could have picked up the weight from the marbles, but do they pick up that much weight from the marbles? Like that's crazy to
They
think
do.
about how much.
They run around on the like the offline of the track, and like if you look at the pictures of those tires, they're just covered in marbles, and like because it's cooler rubber that's coming onto the tires, it it adds weight to it. It's there's so many different physics that goes into it that it just though like for four tires add that much on, you get like at least 2-3 kgs, which would have been enough for him to be within the weight limit.
I would have liked to see it because again, whenever you can pull off a one stop properly, I think that's very impressive feat as a driver.
Hmm.
So it would have been nice to see him get to keep that race win, especially since the car has just gone downhill since then. I know he was pretty
Hmm.
adamant today as well about wanting to stay out, and again, he didn't do what Lewis did, and he didn't explain that to the team in the moment, in the heat of the moment. Then he was just upset
Hmm.
afterwards. So,
Yeah.
what do you think
Yeah.
of
I didn't.
the rule with the red flags to
I
change your
understand it.
tires?
I'm completely fine with it. I understand it. It's one of those risk reward type things. Like you see Alpine there, they took that risk. Like it, if you get rid of it, it completely hampers every other team that, like, if there's a red flag just before they're going to make their pit stop, they're screwed. They go to the back of the grid. So I'm like, there's two very different versions of it, and I completely understand why that rule is allowed, but I see that there's people that don't agree with me.
Yeah, I know. I'm completely in the same boat as you. I think that's the whole fun of it, right? Like you said, it's risk reward. If you want to risk it and stay out there and hope for that red flag, then you're obviously compromising yourself until that red flag comes, if it does come.
Hmm.
So I don't think it's should be even be a discussion that you have to take that rule out that they can change tires. Because if nothing else, the red flag completely takes away any gap that the drivers may have between them. So now they're being
Hmm.
the opposite, like defavorized, because they're choosing to stay out and try a different strategy.
Yeah, and like I think that it's fair because it's completely neutralizing the race. It's basically a reset, and that if you're gonna allow a reset, you gotta allow them to change the tires. That like if in the scenario where you get rid of people being allowed to change tires under the red flag, you'd also have to get rid of them being able to change tires under a safety car or a virtual safety car, unless they have, like, let's say a puncture or something.
Yeah.
But like, unless it's unsafe for them to stay out, they have to stay out that kind of way. But I don't want them to enforce something like that. I don't think that it's necessary. I don't think that it's the right thing to do.
As it is, there's already too little actual different strategies that teams can take. I mean, we've come
Mm-hmm.
to this point where they perfectly know what the window is for each tire. We know what the strategy are going to be. And if you take out this part too, which is still a little bit of the different possible strategies you can take or risks you can take, then again, you're making it too linear for all the teams to have to follow an exact formula. Where you qualify, that's usually
Mm-hmm.
where you'll get finish, usually, or
Yeah.
close one or two spots.
It'd be the same. It'd be the same as them forcing teams to like fuel the cars to the exact amount that would get them the exact amount of laps. Because every team, like, they underfuel to allow them to uh, like, in the event that there's a safety car, that they'll save fuel that type of way.
Yeah.
And they think that that in that sense, you just make them all fuel the cars fully for those laps, even though they don't need to.
Yeah, so
Like,
it's a
it's a
risk,
risk and
Exactly.
reward.
It's a risk that you can take as a team and hope that it pays off for you.
Yep, exactly.
Nice. Uh, anyways, overall, we'll finish this off with, I guess, a rating of the Grand Prix. Would you? I know I
Okay.
asked the question in the chat right at the beginning. Do you think this was the best
Mhm.
Grand Prix of the season? And what rating would you give it out of 10?
Yes, and I would give it a 8.5.
Excellent. For me, it's a yes, and I would go as far as to say a 9. If I
Mm.
take away the breaks we had and view it as one continuous session, that was crazy. Had everything we
Yep.
needed.
Yeah, I feel that the first kind of stint was a bit long, which is what's brought it back to the 8.5. That there wasn't much going on in that first stint, like first kind of 90. Well, after kind of the race start, like the first 4 laps ish, there wasn't much happening until that kind of VSC safety car period, which was like 20 odd laps later. So I think that 20 laps kind of killed it down to 8.5 for me. But I think that other than that, it was an incredible race, and I hope that we can get something close to as good for Vegas.
Hopefully, hopefully. Last year I was pleasantly surprised with how Vegas turned out. I wasn't liking it for qualifying, wasn't
Me
liking
too.
it for free practice, but the race, and there was some action in the race.
Oh, I was so surprised by Vegas last year. I was thinking, oh, this is going to be a terrible race. I really don't like this track. Comes the race day, watch the race. Oh my god, I absolutely love this.
Yeah,
This
the
is amazing.
full send at the end by Leclerc on Perez. Oof,
Oh, amazing.
I'm excited.
Yeah, me
Awesome.
too.
So I guess we'll wrap that up here for today.
Yeah,
Hopefully we'll get
probably.
another one of these next time. Hopefully we'll have more of a actual post qualifying, post race. But unfortunately it's
Yeah,
Vegas, so who knows what the times will be. It'll be hectic once again.
we'll figure it out.
I'm sure we will. I'm sure we will.
Yeah,
But until
yeah.
then,
See
let's
you
see
later.
if let's see if Norris loses some more spots after being summoned, which helps the clerk in the point standings.
Yep, definitely.
All right. Have a great
All
evening,
right.
and we'll chat soon.
See you guys.
See you guys. Bye bye.